Hi, everybody. Welcome. I am so excited to welcome you to the Oakland Art Murmur live stream here at Flax Art and Supply in Oakland. And my name is Jean Marie Durant. I'm the president of Oakland Art Murmur. We are an all volunteer-led organization, nonprofit, based here in Oakland, California. And if you follow us or you watch our live streams or you are watching this live stream, we'd like to ask that you take a minute and press the donate button down below and show us some love so that we can keep doing the amazing work that we do to connect all of you to the visual arts in Oakland. And before we get started, I just wanted to do an acknowledgement that we are currently on land of the Chochenyo Ohlone Nations. And I also wanted to say PSA to stop by Flax Art and Supply for all of your art supply needs and your student needs and cards and gifts as well. So let's get into it. I'm really excited to welcome Sharon here tonight to talk about the Art of It All Bay Area. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here chatting with you about your new platform. So before we get started, for anybody who doesn't know you already, tell us about yourself.
Absolutely. Before I actually get started, I just want to say thank you to Art Murmur and Flax Art and all the folks who are supporting this work today. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to sort of be in real life, in a real space. Again, my name is Sharon Roundtree Bakey, and I am the founder of Artist Love and also the co-creator of the Art of It All Bay Area. I am a curator, art consultant, and community engagement consultant, as well as an engineer. And I've been in this work for about 12 years. I started working as a curator for East Bay Municipal Utility District as a way to support the ongoing employee and community partnership efforts there. And I loved it so much that I decided that I wanted to continue to do this work in the sort of the nonprofit arena. I worked with lots of different organizations, including the San Francisco Foundation, the East Bay Community Foundation, a host of others. And so for me, the Art of It All Bay Area project that we'll be discussing tonight was not a far stretch from the work that I've been doing.
Great. So tell us a little bit about the Art of It All Bay Area and how it works.
Sure. So the Art of It All Bay Area is an online art auction on Instagram. We feature an artist weekly as well as a nonprofit organization. So the featured artist has an opportunity to sell one piece of their artwork. It is artwork of their choosing. And we also ask that they donate 20% of the proceeds of the art purchase. So pretty much the artist is able to retain all of the profits from the art sale. And again, they donate 20% of the proceeds to an organization of their choosing. We work with pretty much all Bay Area artists, and we've featured several Oakland-based artists. One of our first Oakland-based artists we featured was Santos Shelton, and that was back in, I think, June. And the Art of It All project started in May, actually, and we've had 11 artists since its inception.
So why now? I mean, this is one of the most difficult, most challenging times in the art world. Why start this online curation? What kind of made you move in this direction?
Sure. I think, the pandemic, although we've all know what a pandemic is, COVID-19, I thought, really caught everyone by surprise. And shelter in place felt like it was sort of immediate change in the world as we knew it. And I realized that without hesitation, artists and the artist community were the first to start doing the work to help us stay inspired. And this was in the form of posting work that they were, working on, or posting about artist friends, or hitting the streets of Oakland and other large cities and creating murals. And I thought to myself, artists are some of the most generous and thoughtful people that I know. And they do this work without asking for anything in return. And and that's awesome, but what's problematic is that we begin to expect them to do this. And I was just thinking, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and galleries have closed their doors, exhibitions have ended, people are worried about their financial well-being. And so, artists, as well as lots of different other folks in the creative industries, are probably struggling right now. And I thought, it's important for us to figure out a way where artists can still make a means. And so I was having this conversation with a local artist, Adia Millette, and we were both on the same page about the importance of having this bigger discussion about monetization. One of the things that we talked about was well, what if we could somehow promote, an artist's web shop, for example. But the reality is not all artists have a web shop. Not all artists have the resources to start online sales. And so, Adia said, hey, why not an auction, right? I said, that's great, I was like, we're going to be in this pandemic for a while. I don't want to have one auction, so we should do something weekly. And so, because, I work full time and she's a full-time working artist, we were trying to think of a way where we could do this work and get it up running quickly without having to figure out logistics of a web page and so forth. And Instagram seemed like the best option to do something quickly to get things running. And, we're both artists. So, we were careful about how does, the design of it, the aesthetic of it. But we figured rather than really putting in all this work to make it just look perfect, let's keep it simple and let's see if we can just get people to follow and support.
So what has your impact been so far? How many artists, the nonprofits have you featured?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we've had, we're still pretty early in the process, but we've had about 11 auctions, and we've raised, in terms of art sales, we've raised $3,000 worth of art, and we've donated $600, which, for some may seem like a small fraction, but when you think about it, and you think about this whole power of we, right? So prior to this project, that was $3,000 that was just not being contributed towards the arts. That was $600 that wasn't being contributed towards organizations. And we've featured organizations like the Ella Baker Center, who works with tons of different types of nonprofit organizations. We've also featured People's Kitchen Collective and another organization called Stuck Design, which works with youth and making art supplies more available and creating other resources for entrepreneurship. So we feel like we are making an impact, and what we want to do now is we're asking people to spread the word, because for us it's not about we've raised $50,000. That would be awesome if we were able to do that, but really what we're doing is we're building a community. And part of the reason why I'm wearing all of this blue, red, and white is because we are definitely in some really difficult times right now, and a lot of it is focused around this sense of belonging. And for as long as I can remember, even though I love the 4th of July, I was never the one to walk around in patriotic colors, right? But the more and more I think about it, the more it's important for all of us to sort of make this statement that we belong here. And this is the sort of environment we want to create with the Art of It All Bay Area. As you can tell from our previous auctions, we have a diverse group of artists. We have a diverse group of artworks, and we're trying to set an example, because this is how art should look, right? This is how art is. It isn't just this or that, and there is access. So our price points, we've had art that has sold for $100 all the way up to over $400. And so we want to make sure that you don't have to be wealthy to be a collector, right? You don't have to be super established to be an artist that's featured on the Art of It All Bay Area. We want to make sure that we're setting a tone here, that we're not just being inclusive, because inclusive implies that this is something that's already been established and we're thinking about diversity after the fact. We want to sort of set the tone for this is just how it is. this is how it should be. But at the same time, recognizing that there is a disparity for Black and Brown, Indigenous artists, as well as artists who of other underrepresented groups. So we want to make sure that we narrow and at some point eliminate that gap. So we are trying to be very intentional about making sure that we hold space for folks who identify as such.
Yeah, and really kind of leveling the playing field, creating access for a wide array of different artists.
Right.
So how, how do you determine the nonprofit organizations? Do you do that, or does the artist do that?
We allow the artists to choose those organizations. And the really lovely thing about it is that part of what we're trying to do is to empower the folks that we work with, the artists, to have a say. This is different from a traditional sort of curatorial process, because we're not doing studio visits. We're not sort of hand-picking art. We're asking the artists to kind of say, hey, maybe choose 2 or 3 that you like, because sometimes with the artists, they feel like the work that they're most proud of sometimes never seen by anyone, and we want to let artists feel like they have a say in the process. And then as far as the nonprofit organizations, we feel like it's important for them to give to what really matters to them, because it's easier to make that commitment to 20% when you care about the work that the organization is doing. So again, this is about empowering. It's about like thinking about our roles differently. I think the other thing that's important is that while I think the artist community is, or I think it's important that people know the artist community is made up of a lot of different players, right? We're all part of this community that's creating sort of the scaffolding around what we call the artist community. The artist community consists of Flax Art Design, it consists of the curators, it consists of the installers, the folks who transport artwork, the galleries, the artists themselves, and the collectors. And so we want to make sure that we're building this community around like that sort of model. And that is why we have prompt questions. And it's really important for people. It would be great if people provide comment, because we're really just creating those prompts to spread resources. So we'll ask the question, who are you with? Like, where do you shop, right, for your art supplies? We'll ask the question, what sort of resources do you find helpful as an art educator? Because we want everyone to be a part of that conversation. And so that's a series that we're going to continue to have. So we would love it for people to respond and just chime in on the conversation.
Yeah, I love that too on Instagram, because it is so accessible and you can have that dialogue with the audience. Whether they purchase or not, there's something valuable about the conversation about art as well. Tell me a little bit about how you find the artists that you've showcased so far, and a little bit about that process.
Sure. And I want to mention too that while we're sort of talking about community and finding artists, so let me just go back a little bit. So when Adia and I first started this project, Adia's studio assistant, Simone Ophelia, was assisting us with like making sure that we got content on the Instagram platform. And Simone has been like a lifesaver. She wasn't able to be here today. But the thing about folks like Simone is a student. She's an art student at Mills College. And her being a part of this process, it really speaks to why it's important that we take out time to make sure that folks who are budding curators, folks who are budding artists are invited into these conversations as well. So Simone has been instrumental in helping with selecting artists and bringing artists to the conversation. So much so that Adia said, hey, I have lots of amazing projects that I can be working on right now. So I'm going to step back and I'm going to let Simone sort of like grow into this bigger responsibility. So in terms of like artists, some of the artists have contacted us, whether it's through Instagram or through a friend. Some of the artists are artists that I've worked with in the past. or some are just like I've just been browsing Instagram and I've stumbled upon their names. But we're always looking for artists, and we want to keep kind of like we like to be able to plan really far out. So it's great when artists reach out to us.
I love this whole idea because for me also it speaks to the idea of Oakland as an incubator for ideas and also artists. So I'm super excited that you mentioned, you know, just bringing in emerging artists and emerging curators as well. So are you finding, you know, just around the nuts and bolts, maybe for the artists in the audience that might be watching, or curators that are using Instagram or online, how do you think about the work that you sell digitally from a pricing perspective or choices? Does that vary?
I mean, in some ways it does, but in other ways it doesn't. I mean, I think as a curator, whether it's digital sales or it's in person, I'm thinking about is the art ready to be shown? Like, does the piece look complete? Does it, you know, is it, and it isn't necessarily have to be my aesthetic. And I think most really good curators realize that it's not just about you, right? And so when we're looking at art, we're looking at obviously the quality of the work, the quality of the piece, but also, you know, who might be interested in this? Even if not me, could there be an interest for that? And that's why when you look at the selection of art, it's really diverse. It isn't just contemporary art, you know, it's not just figurative, but we're trying to make sure that everyone feels like there's something that could potentially be there for them.
Yeah. Do you find that there are certain pieces that are selling better than others?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that has to do with popularity of the artist, you know, their following, more so than I think the actual type of work. And that sort of is another reason why we're doing this, because there are some really talented artists out there who don't necessarily have this huge following, that maybe don't have access to the same sort of opportunities. They don't have access to the big public art projects, right? Or they don't have access to the big opportunities at Facebook, for example. But it's because maybe people just don't know that they're there and they haven't seen their work. And so we want to use this as a tool so that even the artists themselves can start connecting. So an artist who's more established, or an artist who has done the big Facebook project, can connect this emerging artist with those type of opportunities.
What are you thinking about for the Art of It All Bay Area kind of long term? I mean, we know the pandemic will end at some point and people are more tied to their devices these days and scrolling through more often. I mean, how are you thinking about it kind of now, but also from a growth perspective?
Sure. So one of the things that we're actually going to do within the coming weeks is actually start featuring curators, other local curators. Because as I mentioned, we're trying to build a community and build sort of a shared collective of resources. And because I'm someone who really feels like it's important to pay artists in some shape or form, whether it's a trade or monetary. One of the things that we plan to do is to start a GoFundMe page, because I want to be able to pay a stipend to a curator, or I want to be able to pay a stipend to an intern like Simone to be able to support this work. So that's one thing that we're going to be doing within the coming weeks. One of the other things is that I'm not, most of my work has been in the visual arts, but there's the performing arts too. So I'm really hoping for an opportunity to connect with folks who are sort of curators of the performing arts, to sort of provide opportunity for, even if it's online performance or sort of distant type performance, to create sort of an auction for ticket sales. So I'd love to extend beyond the visual arts. The other thing is, as I mentioned, we want to just call out and give props to all the different moving pieces, all the different people who are involved in the arts. And so when it makes sense and we have an opportunity to highlight an installer, we will do so, because there's an opportunity for that installer to be connected to a gallery, to help with future exhibitions. So we want to be able to create more opportunities like that.
I love that. You're a connector. Okay, we have got, some questions. You ready? We have
Sure.
some audience questions. So this question is from Wanda. She says, when do the auctions take place?
So the auctions take place every Tuesday, and they start at 12 o'clock, and they go 24 hours to 12 o'clock the following Wednesday.
So when do you post about the auction that's going to take place on Tuesday? Do you kind of start on Monday?
We post every Monday, so we'll do a feature on the artist and the organization that they want to support.
Great. So check out the Art of It All Bay Area every Monday to get yourself ready for Tuesday's auction.
The Art of It All _
Bay Area. Yeah. Perfect. Danielle says, what if artists wanted to donate more expensive art? Do you have a maximum value?
We do not. And I'm actually glad that question came up, because one of the things that I wanted to mention is that what we're hoping to do is to get more organizations, for-profit or nonprofit, to match donations. So if you work for a corporation or a nonprofit organization and you want to match a donation, we would love to hear from you. And while I'm on it, I'm going to go ahead and give our Gmail. It's theartofitallbayarea@gmail.com.
Okay, you got that? The Art of It All Bay Area
at Gmail. You can also reach out through Instagram too.
Perfect, and direct message you. Okay. Karen says, how do you submit art for the auction? I'm assuming that's an artist that's interested in getting in touch.
Send the email.
Email?
Yeah, email is probably the best.
Okay.
But DM is well too, through Instagram.
And then will you reach back out to them to set up the process of viewing their work?
Yeah, and we check email pretty regularly.
Okay.
So. But because we're working full-time jobs and taking care of children and doing homeschool, sometimes we may not be able to get right back to you, but we typically will try to respond quickly.
Let's face it, this is everybody's side hustle is in the arts. Let's see, question from Carolyn. She says, I think we answered this one. Will you have guest curators in the future?
Absolutely.
Okay, so a curator could reach out to you, email or DM as well. Okay, awesome. And then Karen says, do you only accept original art, or can it be high quality prints?
You know, we're not opposed to prints, but we're trying to, if at all possible, keep it to original work, because we want, not that prints aren't considered fine art, because they are, and but unless we're talking about photography, obviously that's a different situation, but we want to make sure that collectors feel like they can own an original piece of artwork, even if it's at a $150 price point. So we prefer original works. I
think especially now more than ever, just allowing people the opportunity to purchase work to enhance their home, live with those things that you love. And in the meantime, you're supporting the ecosystem of Oakland's and Bay Area artists.
I mean, I have art at home that has helped me through this pandemic. I mean, it's helped me through shelter in place, just looking at the piece, just like people buy plants and do projects outdoors, It's very therapeutic.
It is. Okay, I'm going to close this out with a few questions. What is some advice that you would give artists and or curators that are really struggling during this closure and shelter in place?
I think probably for both, diversify. So that means that, you have to pivot, like start to pull from your toolkit of all the different skills that you put together along the way. I mean, as an engineer, I pull from my project management toolkit. From having artist receptions, I pull from that and say, okay, what can I do to do more community engagement type projects? And also, like, if you're an artist and you have work, you can connect with someone who, for example, knows how to write grants. Say, hey, I need some help with writing a grant. I can maybe give you this print, or I can give you this piece in exchange for that. You can help me write grants. And so there's this bartering system, this exchange system, but keeping in mind that this is, like putting yourself on a professional sort of path to succeeding in the ways that you want.
Yeah, being really supportive, building that supportive community. Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah.
And then let's see, one more question. So just to one more time, how can folks get involved either to participate in curating, selling work, or to purchase work?
Okay, so reaching out through Gmail is one way. Reaching out through Instagram is another way. Telling your friends to follow along. Also, like doing, this is not just for me, right? This is not just for the folks who are involved at this moment. Like, do something like that on your own, Reach out to an organization, ask them what sort of help do they need, and say, this is the type of help I can give. I learned recently that you can't make assumptions about how people can give. Don't always ask the sort of like the monetary sort of gift, because people can give in all different types of ways. So reach out to those organizations that we featured and see if there's a way that you can support in other ways, even if you can't support by providing some sort of donation.
I love it. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So it's the Art of It All _ Bay Area on Instagram,
Yep.
and the Art of It All at gmail.com.
That's correct. And our next featured artist will be Sophie Buta. I think I pronounced his name correct. So
Great. That's tomorrow. So check it out. Tomorrow's, and the auction will start Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And then thanks again, Flax Art and Supply, for allowing us to use their beautiful space. Please stop in. They're open every day of the week, 7 days a week. Thank you to LFK Media, Lorenzo and Marissa, for amazing live stream capabilities. They're technical wizards. And then now more than ever, I would just encourage everybody to support your local artists and curators. And don't forget to donate. Hit that donate button. I'm using my vlogger skills. Donate button for Art Murmur, and follow us on Instagram at Oakland Art Murmur. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night.